And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Comp and Coffee, the holiday edition. I'm excited here to have with me, as usual, Matt and Bill. Matt, how is your holiday season preparations going, or how are they going? Are you making progress, sir?
I'm doing some online shopping as we talk right now, so I can avoid supply chain issues, get everything out to my house just in time for Santa to arrive.
Oh, well
You're
played.
not supposed to do that.
Hopefully my kids aren't listening to this podcast and hearing that is dad.
Yeah, we have a very young demographic on Comp and Coffee. Many children are interested in the conversation. Bill, how's your holiday season going? Any strategies you're employing to make sure that there's plenty of supply chain at your house?
Yeah, I've got no strategy, no plan whatsoever. Let's see how that plays out. It could be the holiday of the gift card.
Yeah, those are easy because everybody's having a more digital life nowadays, but I still feel like you want to give some cool box to open. So I always struggle with that one.
Right.
You know, it's usually the best gift. That's the worst part. It's like, yeah, that's exactly like my daughter's in college in Milwaukee and she's a starving college student and she would probably love nothing better than a giant gift card for Panera, you know? And I'm like, that'd be great, but it's kind of boring to open, you know? So got to figure that out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Went to a teenager's birthday party and it was like almost every gift was a gift card. And that's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. You know, when you're in college, it's just about the money. But I do think the supply chain and the challenge of shopping this year, it's kind of inspired my family to think more about maybe like, are there other things we could think about in future years? Maybe like, is buying a gift for everyone the right way to go? Or should we move to more of a Secret Santa model where you can really focus on one person and it's less stressful? I don't know. So I have to think about that sort of stuff, but interesting. So one of the things I've also been thinking a lot about, and I know you guys have been thinking about this too, is as we get to the end of the year and we sort of think back at some of the challenges we've seen in 2021 from a comp and HR point of view, clearly retention is one of those things, right? It's been something that's sort of been top of mind for everyone when we talk about the great resignation or the great rethink or the great churn or whatever you want to call it. So how do you keep people? And I saw this post actually in LinkedIn and I liked it. And then Bill, you noticed that I liked it and you're like, hey, we should talk about this. And it was just one of those simple little posts you see floating around on the internet. And it was 16 signs of highly intelligent employees, right? So what are the sort of 16 things that your highly intelligent employees are probably doing right now? You know, Bill, you made the point, this might be an interesting conversation piece. What kind of initially got you interested in it when you first saw it? Like what kind of made you think this should be a thing we talk about on the show?
I don't think it's I'll just say it. It's not literally the list. It's the concept of the list and what's underlying it. And just sort of the idea that, we as HR people can look at characteristics and traits of people to see what drives them and to like who our best employees are, who our smartest employees are, who our most valuable employees are. And it's not, it's not about performance reviews. It's about habits, behaviors, and abilities. So I just think it's interesting. And, some of them are a little unexpected, perhaps, controversial, I'll say. I mean, not super controversial, but I think it makes it a little more provocative and interesting. It's not, they're the smartest employees are the ones that know the most.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah. And what's also interesting about these is, I don't know, Matt, before we jump into because my thought was it might be fun to go down the list, and there's 16 of them, to kind of look at each one and kind of think about what that means from a manager and HR professional point of view. Like, if these are things that smart people do, and by definition, you want to keep smart people, theoretically, what does that mean to your culture, your process, you as a leader, and what they're looking for out of a career and life and work-life balance and all that stuff? But at a high level, Matt, when you looked at this list, did it ring true to you? Did you look at this and go, yeah, most of those are probably the kind of things that people on my team that are super smart are doing? Or did some of it look a little weird? Like how real did it feel?
It felt pretty real. We'll start with sort of, I feel like the most provocative one is the first one. So we'll get into that in a minute. But the majority of them, they seem, some of them seem so simple. And it's just like, of course, a highly intelligent employee should be doing this or should demonstrate these personality traits, characteristics. But, I felt like as a manager, it was good to take a step back and see, this is something I should be looking for when I'm hiring folks, when I'm promoting people, when I'm taking a look at my team and seeing who my top performers are. Simple things, do get the job done and get the job done well. So I think the list is pretty well rounded. I was just looking at the list a second ago, and I think for me, the most provocative one, and I'm curious for everyone's thoughts, is the first one actually, and how people feel about that one.
Well, let's jump in. I think that's a great segue, Matt. We've teased it long enough. So yeah, I think the author of this list was smart by putting a provocative one first because it gets you to sort of start thinking. So good writing style there, Mr. Author of this list. And I don't know who to credit because I just saw it on my LinkedIn list and it was a reshare of a reshare of a reshare. So who knows where it started. But number one is, and there's an interesting word choice here. Number one is they cheat on their job with a side hustle. So, Bill, what does that mean to you? They cheat on their job with a side hustle.
Well, I agree. I think it was smart because it makes you read the other 15. And I think right. Whoever wrote this, he or she did it quite purposefully to get your attention, and it worked with us at least. First of all, I don't think it's literal. It's not intended to be literal. It's more about like being independent and working hard. And that, your smart employees are the ones that are always keeping their eyes open for opportunities, and that could be inside the organization or outside. And it's also sort of a little tip of the hat to the idea that you have to be careful with these employees because they always have things in motion. They're always thinking about what's next. Where do I go? What do I do? How do I, expand my career, advance my career, and so you need to watch for that. It doesn't necessarily literally mean that they're, driving for Uber or whatever else. Or
it could be
at this point, the pandemic, exactly. You can take all your Zoom calls from the car and,
right.
double down on working. But ding, 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 there's another podcast. How many people are working two jobs during the pandemic without telling either employer. But anyway, I think it's really about, it's about they're always looking for new challenges, new things to do, and, and more work.
Yeah. And Matt, what's your reaction? Is it cheating, Matt? Is having a side hustle cheating?
No, I don't think so. Hold on, guys. I got to pick someone up. I got a fare that I'm picking up right
now.
Oh man, it's a surge pricing at Logan Airport. I'll be right back.
I've driven with Matt before, 2 stars at best.
Right.
Come
no
on,
power
man.
cords, no water in the car. Come on, Matt. You can level this up.
No, the way I looked at this one was slightly different, I guess, as well. I like Bill's point about internally and like working on side projects and that sort of stuff. I think that's always good to make sure that your employees are getting that exposure to other areas of the business and working on interesting things to them, not just the regular day-to-day job. But also, I think it's important to have people on your team that have other interests, even outside of work. I think it shows a balanced person that has, if they have hobbies and they have other activities that they're interested in, and they're not solely focusing on this one task that they have with the organization and just their job. It's good to, it's, again, like I said, good balance for someone to have other interest activities and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that was my take on it, Matt. And Bill, I loved your point though, that it may not be literal. I took it a little more literally, although I disagree with the word cheat. I think it was smart to use it as provocative. But I think we as leaders should be okay as long as you're executing and the company's getting good value for what they pay you for what you do, and you're getting your projects done and you're nailing it. I as a manager should not, I don't own you. You can go do whatever you want when you're at home. But also we as managers and leaders, in an HR, we are always hoping and expecting people, our best employees, right, are out, they're self-starters, they're learners, they're out there trying new things, they're learning new things. Just because they're getting a little extra money on the side for learning and doing other things that aren't maybe part of their day job, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, if they're their side hustle is they're a video game streamer on YouTube and they're making $100 a month doing that, who cares? They're learning new things. They're increasing their speaking skills, whatever, it could be whatever they want to do. I think that for me, what it tells me is if my smart people are doing other things outside of work that are also important to them, then work-life balance, don't assume just because someone's young and they aren't married yet, or they don't have kids yet, that work-life balance is not important to them, right? Because they may want to balance these other things they want to experiment with in life. And so we should not assume that just because someone does not have a family or some of the traditional things that require more aggressive work-life balance doesn't mean it's not out there. That's kind of my takeaway from this one. And number 2 is interesting. Treat everybody equally, including the cleaner was actually part of this one. Sort of, Matt, what was your takeaway on that one? Treating everyone equally. What does that mean to you and your organization?
I mean, I think it's a good message or a good judge of character in life, to see how people treat everyone they interact with, waiters and waitresses, the cleaner, as this example says here. But within the organization, within like an office culture, I think it's important to look at employees, to look at management, executives, and see how they treat everyone. It could be as simple as, responding to an email or returning a phone call and that sort of stuff. Or, for someone that's maybe at a lower level position than you are, you should treat everyone equally. I think it shows good character and shows that you care about other people's success within the organization. And I think it goes a long way for employees. If they're getting responses from upper management, from questions, feedback that they have, it shows that, they're part of something, they're part of the team, part of the culture. That's how I took it.
Yeah. I think, it's about treating people fairly and knowing that, you're part of a team and that the people who are on the hierarchy below you are important to you succeeding. And I think you see it all too often is that, the people high up sort of ignore or disrespect the people that are lower down, but the people lower down are getting an awful lot of work done and making a lot of stuff happen. And, and smart people know that, and they know that, you need to rely on them and you need to, encourage them and respect them for what they're doing.
Yeah, I think what impressed me on this one, it's certainly nice to think and know that smart people are also the kind of folks who are, better people culturally in your organization. And my takeaway from that as a leader or someone who talks to HR folks is, if you don't like number 1, right? If you don't like the fact that smart people are probably going to have a side hustle, cleaning out all the people with side hustles are probably going to clean out some of your best cultural employees, right? Like as you start to think this list through and bring it together as in toto, right? So you start to think about what it all means together. My thinking is like, you got to be accommodating for some of the things that smart people want to do, or you'll actually make a worse corporate culture in general. So keeping these people is good for a variety of reasons. They're talented, they're smart, they're learning things, they're self-starters, but they're also probably some of the most liked and cordial folks because they treat people with respect, regardless of where they are in the organization. All right, Bill. Number 3. I want you to talk about number 3 a little bit here. I don't know why I'm picking you on this one, but what's number 3 say, Bill?
They rebel against micromanagement and dictator leaders. I think this is fairly true. I think micromanagers and dictators have one thing in common: they limit the abilities and contributions of those around them. And it's just bad. And they, like, dictatorial leaders or micromanagers, always need to be the smartest person in the room, and that you're definitely not. If you're that kind of leader, you're not going to get the best contribution from people who are smarter than you. If they realize that you're not going to respect them, you're going to sideline them, stick them in a corner, to avoid the embarrassment of having someone else come up with a good idea. And I think it's funny because they don't like to be challenged, but they're exactly the people who should be challenged.
Right.
The micromanagers. And I think by turning your smartest employees, your most intelligent employees, into basically just doers and order takers, reduces their value. It hurts the company, and I've always thought of it the opposite: is surround yourself with smart people smarter than you, and you look better. You're the manager. You get collective credit for everything your team does. And sort of help them get better, which helps you get better. I'll stop.
Yeah, Matt, my take on it was sort of the idea that, smart people, they treat everybody equally. So, but if they have that mindset, they're going to be automatically antithetical to dictators and micromanagers. But two, they want to be empowered. They are smart. And so they know they have good ideas. They know they can execute well. So they want to be empowered to do that sort of stuff. Matt, was that your takeaway from this one?
Yeah. I mean, I think micromanagement, dictator leaders, they stifle creativity, and, the organization, the people will never be able to grow and change, under that sort of management. And I think, like, for highly intelligent employees too, I think it's, again, a provocative word choice that they rebel against dictator leaders. It sounds pretty intense there. I think highly intelligent employees know the ways to go about rebelling, quote unquote, and know how to approach these types of leaders and to demonstrate creativity and new ways of doing things as well. It's not just, hey, I'm not doing it your way, I'm going to do things my way. They know how to approach those sort of things.
Can I inject one little thing in here? It just came to mind. It was like I don't know why it came to mind here. It's like, this list really isn't just about intelligent employees or high IQ employees. This is about good employees.
Yes.
Smart, good contributing, hardworking. It could have been any of them.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's the other part of the smartness. Yeah, the author was smart here, right? So they kind of said, do these things and you're smart. But because it's less impactful than it says, do these things and you're a good person. You know what I mean? Like it's more desirous. I want to be smart, so I shall do these things too, right? But it's really just, these are the kind of, I look at this list, and I think I like where you're going with this, Bill, is I look at this as like, if all your employees were like this, you'd be in pretty good shape. Like that's some good things happening here. And that kind of goes into number 4 is also an interesting one. There's a couple more on here that are kind of controversial, maybe not as controversial as having a side hustle, but number 4 is they know when to say no to a meeting. Matt, what's your reaction to that one?
I'm actually in favor of this one. We're going to get to another that's somewhat related to this that I think is a little more controversial for me, but I think that many of us, myself included, at times are guilty of scheduling a meeting for every single topic that comes up. And anytime a discussion needs to happen, it clogs up people's calendars. It prevents them from getting other more important tasks done within a day. And honestly, when we're talking about retaining employees, work-life balance and all that sort of stuff, it's, sort of counterintuitive to all those sort of things if we're hijacking people's times when we could just send an email instead. If you're using Slack, you could just send a Slack. If it's a simple answer that we don't need to have a group meeting for every single topic, there are faster, more efficient ways to get things done. And that's how I took this one. I'm not sure if you guys felt the same way.
Bill, what was your reaction?
I do feel the same way. And I think, I've watched this throughout my career, and inviting people to meetings is free. Attending meetings costs money and time. So people, like, meetings have gotten bigger, they've gotten more plentiful, and, COVID has just, put it over the top. And sometimes this is more about corporate culture than it is about, intelligent or like good employees. But, we've sort of evolved to a place where, it's insulting to not include everybody who might be involved in a potential discussion that may come up in a meeting to that meeting. And it's just like not necessary. And, lots of meetings can be replaced with, phone calls, and lots of phone calls can be replaced with emails, and lots of all those can just be replaced with a good leader making a good decision and informing people what it is. But I think back to the point, that, your smart employees or good employees, they know whether or not a meeting has value to them and or they have value to it. And I think it's even a conscious decision per se, but they, just sort of decide like what is the best use of the next hour of my time? Is it sitting in the room or on the Zoom with, 10 other people discussing a topic, or is it moving forward with some other project? And, they're willing to make that choice, which is good.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the one other aspect to that, because I like both of there's definitely a time management, smart people are really good at time management, right? Like it's something they really understand. And there's several things in this list that come back to that touchstone of that smart people understand the value of time. The other aspect to this meeting, though, I think will segue us into number 5, which is one of the values of being able to say no to a meeting is time management. But the other one is, if I'm your boss, maybe I don't need to be there because I trust my team members to handle it for me. Like there's some people who always need to be in every meeting, regardless if they've already got people, lower level folks that are doing stuff. And so it's part of it's trusting your team to be empowered to be able to make decisions without you in the room, and trusting your boss to be able to make decisions to not have to have you in the room. So basically saying, yeah, there's enough people already in this meeting. The right people are already in there. You don't need me here. I do not need to be part of this. Which is kind of what both of you were saying, but it's kind of adding the actual aspect of helping others. Right. And that dovetails into number 5, which is specifically they help others advance in their career, right? So if there's a meeting and one of your lower level junior people is going to it, maybe you don't show up and let that junior person really sort of have that moment in the sun and really have a chance to really show what they can do and show where they are on the project or whatever they're working on. But what is your guys' reaction to number 5? Bill, what were you thinking about when it says they help others advance in their career?
This is one of those, to me, two-way streets. Is like helping others advance in their career helps you in the long run. So it's almost like you're not particularly smart if you don't do that.
Right.
But you see it all the time with managers who don't want to promote their key players because the manager depends on those people, and the manager's trying to protect his or her org. Mm-hmm. But that's fairly short-sighted, because you're going to frustrate the person by not helping them advance, and perhaps passively encourage them to look for other jobs, because if you're holding them back, you're not helping them advance their career within the company. A good employee is going to advance their career. They're going to, move around you, and move around you could be to another department, could be to another company or competitor. The people you help early in your career are the ones that come back and help you later in yours.
Yep.
My thought.
Matt, any same reaction there? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, same reaction. I don't know what else I can add on to that, except actually, so we were talking about it a lot in sort of the manager aspect, but even as an individual contributor and you're on a team, you have someone else on your team that maybe needs additional help, is maybe new or is struggling, helping them get up to speed. Again, back to Bill's point, will help you do better too. If that person is pulling their weight better at that point, they're succeeding, chances are you're going to be succeeding as well too. The team will get more exposure, visibility within the organization. And by you helping that person get up to your level, it will help you and create a better environment too within your team structure.
Yeah, this goes back to sort of smart people know that treating other people the way you want to be treated is always good, right? And my only addition is it's also, I think smart people do this even when they're not folks on their team or even in their function of the organization. Like smart people are happy to be mentors and mentees beyond the scope of their day job, right? Or they're even their vertical, which is great. Okay, so Matt, so you were hinting at some other controversial ones, and this next one is interesting. So Matt, what is number 6, and what's your reaction to it?
They don't respond to most emails. So I'm not sure I completely agree with this one. All right. So I can understand not responding to some emails. One thing that bothers me and I think is unnecessary and just creates, delays decisions and stuff like that. It's like group emails where every person feels like they need to respond, even if they don't have,
right. Respond all, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't love that. That's a pet peeve of mine. But I mean, going back to when we were talking about treat everybody equal. Number 2, I feel like if an email is sent to you directly, one-on-one, then you should respond. And if it's an ask of you, then you should respond on that ask, even if it's something that you can't fulfill at that time. I think about it in like sort of customer service terms. And if a customer reaches out to me and they're looking for something and I don't have an exact answer at that time, my process, my philosophy on it, and I know that, I think you two share the same philosophy, is respond back to that person and let them know when you're going to be able to get them an answer or why you don't have an answer and when the ETA is of when you should be able to get them an answer. So that's sort of how I feel about it. I don't completely agree with it, but I do see some value in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Well, first of all, yes, we all agree with you, Matt, on that. The customer and sort of direct emails. But I probably cynically read this a little differently as back is like don't go to all meetings, don't respond to all emails. But the bulk of the emails that people get these days are not the direct emails asking a question or asking for help. It's those broad distribution emails. And they don't really require a response, or they only require one response, but you get a lot of people weighing in. And I think, one of the things you've got to keep in mind is that, if you respond, more than just a yes or a no, if you write something that people need to read and process, every person on that email chain is going to be stuck reading and processing that. And so you're creating this like exponential time suck by responding to emails that don't need to be responded to. And I sort of see it that way. And another variation, and this touches a little on, I think, Matt's, way, although, customers, clients are sort of different, but internal people asking you questions, I'm sure you guys did this with your kids, and perhaps our listeners did too. Like when your kids ask you a question, do you always solve their problem right away, or do you sometimes hold back and let it go and see if they can solve it themselves as sort of a, make them figure it out and, help them learn how to solve the problems rather than just always answering questions immediately? I think there's some of that in here too. I'm going to go back to our anonymous or mysterious author here who, by just keeping it as a short, they don't respond to most emails, like says something challenging and, leaves it to the reader, to the audience to figure out like what it means and why that's a good idea, or perhaps when that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, actually. Obviously, any direct questions you should respond to. However, I think part of this goes into the bucket of smart people are good at time management. And what you should not do is it's very inefficient to break your workflow by constantly answering emails whenever the little ding happens, right? Like if you're in the middle of deep thought and trying to do something, especially important for developers and software engineers, like there's a speed and cadence of getting into the zone and actually coding. And if every time someone slacks you or emails you, you stop what you're doing, put down your work, change your brain pattern and go try to answer the email, you'll become very inefficient. And so I kind of took this one to mean you schedule times during your day to answer emails. You don't have to answer them all immediately. You certainly don't have to answer all the group emails. I sort of have I've always kind of coached people to have an SLA on emails, like establish with everybody that you're going to always respond to emails in X number of hours, either daily or 6 hours or something, and set the expectation that you, just because you get an email and you don't hear back from me in the next 15 minutes doesn't mean I'm ignoring you, So I think it kind of touches the time management, but also don't have to feel like you're the smartest person always responding to every email.
Especially during meetings as well too. That's that's a good point, Russ. It's like when you're in the middle of a meeting, be focused on that meeting. If this is a necessary meeting that we should all be attending, then you should have your undivided attention. You shouldn't be answering emails on the side just because you want to get answers out there.
Yeah, and that's especially awkward when you're in the meeting and you're on the same email thread as someone else in the meeting, and your phone's dinging, and the person in the meeting is responding, and this email's got nothing to do with what's happening in the meeting. So clearly, that person is not engaged. It's like, man.
Can we talk about texting?
I think texting during a meeting is probably just rude. So if smart people aren't rude, then yeah, I guess that's. But I'm not sure. Nowhere on this list does it say smart people are not rude. So
okay.
Maybe they are rude. I think number 7 kind of is goes without saying, but they stay away from gossip and corporate politics. I think smart people just know that's a third rail, right?
Right.
So just don't, the old joke, DDT, don't do that. It's pretty much all
right.
I say about that one.
And everyone, when you're one of those people, everyone knows it, and that does hold you back as an employee.
And it never gets you anywhere. Like, it doesn't help you at all. It's just, it might be fun or catty or whatever, but it doesn't really help anything. So number 9 is kind of the same as number 1 a little bit. They try entrepreneurship at least once to see what it feels like. What was your reaction to that one, Bill?
How can I get all the hard ones? I think
again, Matt's answering emails over there, Bill. I got to distract him.
It's actually just surfing the web in general. Anyway, I think again, you guys are probably going to push back. I take a sort of a slightly broadened view of what entrepreneurship means here, and that it's like experimentation and learning. I think are genuinely and generally seen as hallmarks of intelligent people, because they look for ways to expand and stretch their knowledge and their skills. And entrepreneurship is a way of dealing with that, because it's kind of a way of breaking pigeonholes, if you will. Like you have to do a lot more than, a very narrowly defined job in an entrepreneurial situation. And, smart people sort of get excited about learning more, doing more, and expanding what they're doing. And as an employer, I think it'd be good to look for ways to provide that kind of opportunity inside your organization, so that your best people can, have like a full work experience and be excited about working at the organization. And, you're sort of feeding their need to learn and expand. Matt,
go ahead, Matt. What's your action?
Yeah, I mean, I think well said by Bill, but like the other thing is that if they're learning a little bit more about what it takes to start a business, they're learning about other aspects of your own organization and how those things work and where they generate it from. So it helps in understanding how the rest of the organization runs if they're starting their own thing, their own company, their own project on their own. So it's helpful for their development within the organization.
Yeah, and groups, teams, departments, divisions, those are all, organizations within the organization. You can be entrepreneurial within your team, and that's how that's where like culture and sort of the work family, if you will, is all very local to the people right around you.
Yeah.
100,000 person company, it's still the 50 people that you work with on a daily or weekly basis. That's who you see the company as. And that's like, that's the entrepreneurial organization that you're part of or could be part of.
Yeah. And I think my takeaway here is, in addition to them, obviously, we'll probably experiment with business ownership at some point. But what this really means is, and you touched on it, Bill, right? They're not afraid to try things that are outside their comfort zone. They're not afraid to wear some hats or do some tasks that are outside their lane or what they're trained in. Which basically means if there are opportunities like that in your organization, and your organization is doing something a little edgy that requires someone to have a broad set of skills and be willing to learn and grow and try things that and perhaps fail, because all those things are in entrepreneurship, then these kinds of people are valuable in those sorts of places, right? So, because one of the things about an entrepreneur is you're entering into a very uncertain situation. And a lot of folks aren't comfortable with uncertainty. And there are a lot of times in companies, regardless of size, where being comfortable with uncertainty is required. And so I think this is another one of those examples where these are the kind of people that can be very valuable in situations where it's hard to find the right person for the job. And then number 10 is interesting. I don't know who to throw this to without looking rude, so I'm just going to say it myself. They are fine being the dumbest person in the room.
You're very smart, Russ.
Well, to me, I'll start with this one. To me, it means it's okay. Their goal in a meeting, and this kind of goes back to both saying no to meetings, but also not answering every email, especially the email chains. Their goal is never to prove how smart they are. Like that's not in their DNA, and it's not something they wake up in and they want to make sure everybody knows they're smart. They're okay. Not if someone else says something really intelligent, they don't have to be the one person with the last word. They don't have to be the person that tries to outshine that person. They're just like, okay, that's brilliant, nicely said, kind of thing. What is your guys' reaction to this, Matt? What do you think about this one?
A funny little story from Thanksgiving this year. I was at my in-laws. We had finished up dinner, and my father-in-law asked me in front of everyone, Matt, what is I forget how he put it. I think he said something like, Matt, what is the most important thing that has made you successful in your career? Which is just a bombshell to drop on someone right after they finish Thanksgiving dinner.
A giant tryptophan-filled bird.
Yeah. So after I caught my breath and my wife started laughing at me and the question to me, this was actually what I said. And that I think that, I've been comfortable not being the smartest person in the room. I don't think I called myself the dumbest person in the room. But that's okay. If people want to put that on me. But I think the messaging that I then gave to my father-in-law is that I, throughout my career have surrounded myself with very intelligent people that I can learn from as a manager, hiring people that, have maybe slightly different backgrounds than me, have been, more successful than me that I can learn from and I can grow as a manager. And, going back to number 3, micromanagement, dictator leaders. I think a good leader surrounds themselves with smart people that they can learn from, and they're not just delivering a process to their employees that everyone needs to follow to a T.
Well said. Bill, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd just say truly smart people are never intimidated by smarter people. They just, they value it, they learn from it, and they're sort of confident enough in what they know and what they're good at that they're not worried about other people. And I think that that helps the organization get smarter and better.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then number 11 is kind of dovetails into a lot of the earlier ones. They ruthlessly protect their time, which I think goes back to saying no to meetings and not answering every single email. But basically they just know the value of time, and they know the times of day when they're most efficient. Anything to add to this one?
I think in the interest of time, we should move on.
Good call. This number 12, I really like. So I'm going to toss this one to you, Bill. Bill, what do you like about what is number 12 and what do you like about it?
Number 12 is they focus on outcomes, not KPIs. And this is one of my favorites. And I think this is a big lesson, sorry to bury it, the back half of the podcast here, but we didn't make the list. We could have changed the order. But it's almost a form of a litmus test or a Rorschach test. It'll sound funny, it's sort of ironic coming from me as an incentives person, but employees who focus narrowly on hitting their KPIs or the company KPIs aren't the best contributors, because the KPIs are really like a simplified view of what success looks like. But often you have other things that are more important, more big picture. And intelligent people, good employees make calculated decisions on how to optimize the real value, not just the KPIs.
Right.
And they end up delivering much more long-term value. And it's sort of like, as a manager, as a compensation person, as a business owner, you look at people who are singularly focused on KPIs, and they're not. That's not your A team.
Right.
And you, I don't know. You run the risk of. I mean, you also run the risk of just hitting them. You're rarely gonna, have wild out of the park results if you're focused on hitting your KPIs, because you will hit them.
Right.
Or you'll come close to them. You're not going to, most of the time you won't come in far under, but you also won't go way over.
Yeah, I think that's right. Matt, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I could relate it back perhaps to, you, Russ, and to me, working in customer experience and customer success. You may look at a KPI as customer retention, your renewal rates, all that sort of stuff. But the outcome that you and I are really focused on is customer happiness, a positive customer experience, value for our customers, the most important things. And if we do those things, and if we focus on customer experience, customer happiness, the retention will come. Happy customers will renew their contracts. They'll look to expand relationships with the vendors that they're working with. And if we focus on, the bigger outcome, the bigger picture of, let's make sure that we create a culture of advocates, of people that are ecstatic with the products and services that they use with us, then all those other KPIs will hit, and we'll probably exceed them too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
I think that's a great point, Matt.
Yep.
Sorry. Reinforcing something that I was trying to say, is that the real value is the customer being happy. The KPI is an easy metric or measure. It's a way to quantify or try to, it's a proxy for customer happiness. It's like that they don't equal each other. It's just, it's hard to measure happiness, but it's easy to measure the results of happiness. So, if you can make customers happy, that's your job, more so than, hitting these derived metrics that imply happiness.
Right. It's about making the customer successful. And there's really no way to measure customer success. You can use NPS and renewal rates, and those are all great proxies, and they give you some directional information, but it's not the same as literally helping a client just really save the day on whatever they're working on.
Right.
Awesome. Next couple are kind of, for in the interest of time, I'll kind of buzz through them. One is they're wildly open to new ideas. I think that kind of goes without saying, given the fact that they do side hustles and they're entrepreneurial. So yeah, they'll definitely be, they won't. And I would add to that one, it doesn't have to be their idea. Again, don't be the smartest person in the room. So any good ideas you're going to listen to. The other quick one, I want to kind of zip through the next couple and then go to the last one and kind of close on the last one here for the focus. They also create stuff people want. As a client experience guy, I read that as they talk to people and they get client feedback when they build stuff. But it's, that's a very specific example here, but maybe we'll pause on that one for a minute. So what does create stuff people want kind of mean to you guys? What does it mean to you, Bill?
I think it means they think through the problems more holistically, and they look for like, what's the real goal? Yeah. Rather than, just taking the order straight up and saying, can you do this? They step back and think, like, what is the real objective? What are we trying to do? And make sure you build what people want or deliver what people want, not literally what they asked for. Ideally those two are very close, but they're more, more clear and focused on practicality.
Yeah.
Leave it at that.
They listen, is a simple way I think of putting it. They listen to whoever their client is, whether it's internal or external. They're listening to those folks and trying to, marry that with their experience, their skills to deliver a product, a service that, meets their internal or external clients' needs.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think when you were both saying that, it reminded me of another product management tool, which is the 5 whys. I think smart people ask why lots, right? And the idea is if you ask why 5 times, you get to the real crux of what people need. And it also goes back to the KPI thing, right? Why are you studying this KPI? Oh, it's because you really are trying to do this, right? And so by asking why a lot, you're really going to build the right thing or get the right outcome, and which I think all makes sense. Number 15, I think, is really just more of some of the earlier stuff. They learn without being told. Well, having a side hustle, being an entrepreneur, of course, they're really interested in learning. So they're a proactive learner, I think, what goes without saying. But this last one's really interesting. Matt, what is number 16, the last one, and what does it mean to you?
Number 16 is they're humble. I mean, you can, just like with some of these other ones, you can tie it back to earlier ones. I think this one goes back, for me, to number 10. They're fine to be the dumbest person in the room. They don't need to demonstrate all the time that they are the smartest, the most talented. They're comfortable taking their success, and they don't need to vocalize that throughout the organization. Because I feel like, if you're that type of person, if you're a manager that's doing that sort of stuff, you're creating a culture that's just not, rewarding for other employees that are on your team, that report to you, or if you're an individual contributor that are on your team. It might mean something different to the two of you, though. Bill, what do you think?
I think that's about right. Smart employees know what they don't know and what they do know, and they're comfortable in both situations, what they know and what they don't know. And if, they're smart, they don't have to tell people they're smart. People know they're smart. You get it from observing people, the way they think, the way they act, the way they process information. And I think the humility comes from, or it's related to, we may have talked about this in a previous podcast, like the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is, the idea that smart people tend to think that they're not as smart as they are, and less smart people tend to think they're smarter than they are. And so then your smart employees tend to think that they're not that smart, and that's where the humility comes from.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good factor. It's a good habit or a good attribute.
I think it kind of ties back to number 2 also. I think smart people, to your point, Bill,
what's number 2?
Well, number 2 was they treat everybody equally. And I think it comes back to smart people think everybody could be as smart as they are. Like they don't view themselves as like somehow magically gifted, right? They're like, no, I just happen to be good at these sorts of things. And you're good at different things than I'm good at, And so I think that's what that is. That humility comes in because they don't think they're like, the gift to the meeting room or the gift to the email thread. There's like, I have thoughts, but you've always said the good stuff. So I can be quiet here, And I think that kind of sums it all up. So, that's what.
Can I add one little downside to this? And again, I'm now going into the, HR audience here listening. Is you have to be careful though, because if you don't, if you are one of your organization, sidelines these good employees, these smart employees, or doesn't listen to them, doesn't respect them, doesn't value their contribution, they will contribute less.
Yes.
As a reaction, thinking like I'm not helping, therefore I'm not going to waste time, I'm not going to contribute. And in fact, that's exactly what you don't want to happen. So you have to be careful in that situation.
That's a great point. And because of number one, where they have a side hustle, it means that your company isn't your entire sense of self-worth, right? They can go put their more time into their side hustle if they don't feel like they're appreciated here, right?
Or make their side hustle their
main hustle. All of a sudden, you're the side hustle, right? Don't be their side hustle. Be their main hustle.
Yeah.
That's where we're going with this. So there you have it. That's what we think on the 16 signs of highly intelligent people. But what do you think? Let us know. You can email us, send it to coffee@payscale.com, or reach out to us on our Payscale Twitter feed over at Payscale. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Comp and Coffee.
Comp and Coffee is a PayFactors production dedicated to the compensation community. We welcome your feedback. Send email to coffee@payfactors.com, tweet us at PayFactors, or share your thoughts in our PayFactors community tile. Until next time, keep your coffee hot and your data fresh.